In the pouring rain, heartbroken Nick is having a major flashback. Remember his mentor and uncle, Argus? Yeah, well, Argus totally kicked him out of his own party for basically being a bossy weakling. Harsh! Anyway, a super cute idol lady walks up to this sulking loser and seriously tries her best to cheer him up. After a few failed attempts, bless her heart, she invites Nick to watch her perform at the idol hall the next day. Then boom, she's gone, probably off to another gig. But get this, after his first super reluctant visit to Agate, aka the idol hall, Nick totally gets his confidence back. Not only that, he unlocks this crazy obsession with young idols and decides, you know what? I'm gonna sign up for a new adventurer party. His plan? Make some new friends and earn enough cash to fuel his idol otaku lifestyle. Priorities, right? So, Nick heads to this guild for amateur adventurers, but his whole I don't trust humans vibe starts creeping in and totally messes with his self-confidence. After hours of just nothing, Nick's sulking big time over not finding a new party. Later that night, he decides to drown his sorrows in some good old beer. Just a few lonely gulps in, the bar hostess guides a group of 3 people to the empty seats right at Nick's table. Through his drunken haze, Nick scopes out the attire and weapons of these 3 mysterious adventurers. He figures out that one of them is totally from a rich, loving family. The second, a cleric who must have been excommunicated. And the last member, who's a beast human, just has this super sad aura around her. She seriously reminds Nick of a wounded animal. After making a pathetic toast to his broken life and the gloomy clowns in front of him, poor Nick chugs his beer. And get this, when Nick and the 3 strangers all gulp down their drinks, they're completely caught off guard by what their drunken selves just did. They all screamed, in unison, that they would never, ever trust humans for the rest of their lives. Talk about a dramatic moment. So, Tiana, who Nick totally pegged as being from a wealthy home, is this brilliant mage, but she lost all trust in humanity when her former fiancé Alex absolutely shattered her heart. Not only did he cheat on her with someone of a lower class, the nerve, but he also claimed her brilliance cast a thick shadow over his worth. Seriously? Tiana then got accused of bullying Alex's side piece and ended up getting kicked out of school and disowned by her parents. Ouch. After wandering around a bunch of cities looking for a paying job and a chance to start fresh, Tiana stumbles upon this gambling ring. She decides to try her luck betting on monster racing. And guess what? After her first win, she totally loses herself in the treacherous world of gambling and blows all her money. She ends up living like a homeless bum until she sees an ad for an adventurer guild. That her new plan? Use her adventure rewards to fund her gambling habit. Yikes. After Tiana's super bitter story, Nick, still pretty drunk, asks the cleric to spill his sob story. The cleric sighs and starts his narration. He came from this city famous for its medicinal herbs and giant temple. Zem, the cleric, lost his trust in humanity when Miral, this little girl he'd grown fond of and taken under his wing, totally framed him. She said he tried to have his way with her after he rejected her romantic advances. What? After 3 miserable months in jail, Zem gets exiled from his city and stripped of his priesthood. His first stop is this small diner where the hostess, uses him to cure her arching desires and unlocks a new drive for the poor priest. Whoa. The next morning, the hostess tells Zem to head to Labyrinth City, become an adventurer, and turn over a new leaf. After the drunken adventurers soak up Zem's story, they all agree that they definitely won't be believing random stories told over beer anymore. Then Zem blurts out that he's on his way to defeating the Demon King. Nick suddenly remembers that one person hasn't told her story yet, the red-haired beast. Human totally frets when Nick calls her attention before shyly mentioning that something super important was stolen from her by the person who meant the most to her. Oh, snap. And a few minutes later, the beast human totally gives in to her drunkenness and starts making a scene. Nick wakes up the next day and is like, wait, why am I in a room with 3 strangers? He remembers bits and pieces of the night before and tries to kick them out. But Tiana's like, nope, this is my room, before she kicks Nick and the others out. After having another flashback to his encounter with the young idol, Nick calls the cleric and the beast human together. He suggests that since they've all lost their trust in humanity, they should form a trust-free party to achieve their goals. Smart thinking, Nick. After Nick's epic pep talk, our 4 heroes roll into some random adventurer guild, ready to make it official and form a party, when the manager's like, so what you gonna call yourselves? Nick's all, survivors, because no matter what wild stuff happens, we always find our way back. After a little thinking time, everyone totally agrees, and boom, survivors it is. That night, they lay down the law with 3 golden rules. 1, don't mess with anyone else's hobbies. 2, gotta be smart with the cash. And 3, no matter what, come back alive. Nick then suggests everyone gets in on protecting their hard-earned rewards. He'll handle the books, Tiana's gonna audit them and carry the actual money. Curran, the beast human, is on safeguarding duty, and Zem's got the key. But Zem's all, hold up Nick, are you just bossing us around for your own gain? Tiana quickly points out that out of everyone, Nick has the toughest time getting to the safe himself. Zem then brings up another instance of betrayal, and Curran happily declares she'll totally steal the safe to buy some delicious food. Nick's like, look guys, the only way this works is if we believe in each other, even if we have our own doubts. He asks Curran to trust him, but Curran's honest and admits she can't really really put her faith or trust in anyone. Tiana and Zem jump in, saying they feel the same way as Curran, but they're still willing to find a middle ground. The very next day, the squad kicks off their first mission as a party. Nick leads them into this wild labyrinth, and Curran immediately senses something is off, while everyone else is just chilling and chatting away. Suddenly, they stumble upon a wimpy slime just munching on grass. Nick yanks out its core, then keeps leading his crew deeper into the labyrinth. After pulling cores from a bunch more weak slimes, Tiana totally zones out and starts blabbing away. She gets smacked right in the face by a slime, and then trips over another. After picking herself up, Tiana agrees to actually focus. Annoyed, she whips up some sharp ice shards and accidentally launches them right at an unsuspecting Curran. Luckily for Curran, she spins around and blocks the attack with her massive sword. Tiana, feeling super guilty, tries to check on Curran, but Curran flips out, reminding them she's been trying her best to believe in them, but they just keep proving her wrong. Even with this silent beef between Curran and Tiana, the two girls team up with the rest of the group to smash through the lurking slimes until they hit the top floor, where the king slime is just chilling like a giant, purple blob. While Nick's dropping knowledge about the king slime, Tiana just charges forward and attacks it. She stabs the giant slime with an icicle, and boom, the king slime explodes, covering all the adventurers in its gross goo. By the river, Curran's like, yep, never trusting Tiana again, and Zem asks Nick why the king slime exploded. Nick explains that huge slimes react to super powerful magic by basically exploding slime everywhere. Tiana then accuses Nick of not mentioning that little detail, and Nick's like, well, if you'd told me what kind of magic you were gonna use, I totally would have advised you. Nick tells Zem that his best spot is in the back, not the front. He pulls out his weapons and tells the group all about his strengths and weaknesses, then mentions to the others that it's up to them if they want to share their own, but they should really think about why they joined the party in the first place. Zem spills his fighting specs, and Nick's words totally hit Tiana deep. She bows to Curran and apologizes for everything she did before. She then tells the group all about her strengths and weaknesses. After pointing out that Curran's strength is fire, she heads back to her spot. Curran then sneezes fire right at a shivering Tiana, and Tiana thanks her as her cold skin warms up. Curran pretends she missed her shot, and just like that, an odd and unspoken bond forms between the two girls. In no time, the survivors are off on their second mission, where they totally work together to take down a whole clan of humanoid monsters. Zem realizes Nick is a total powerful hunk. While Nick's collecting proof of their completed mission, Tiana's scanning the woods with her detect magic spell for any other humanoid monsters. Zem comments that Tiana's detection magic is way stronger than normal. The three goofballs point out that Nick is way more powerful than he even thinks he is. Tiana then gets everyone's attention, pointing out a super high-level magic entity she detected in the woods, like 5 times the magic power of a normal goblin. Nick's like, that's probably an ogre, then adds that they don't have enough team fighting experience to face one. When Zem asks if retreating is the best move, Nick explains that if they leave the ogre, it and its clan will end up soaking up all the magic around and eventually start raiding small towns. Nick also adds that defeating an ogre means a huge pot of money. After a moment of total confusion among the party, Tiana speaks up, saying ogres are super resistant to magic, and she can only distract it while the others take it down. Nick cooks up a plan in no time, and the 4 of them march toward the ogre. Curran leads the charge, and Zem covers Nick and Curran with magic, while Tiana distracts the ogre with icicles. After watching the first wave of goblins fall, Curran makes the super tough decision to trust Tiana enough not to get hurt by her icicle shower. With pure fire in her eyes, Curran engulfs her sword in flames and slices right through the ogre in one clean swing. While Tiana and Zem watch Nick and Curran removing the goblin's horns, Nick totally trips and accidentally shatters Curran's swan pendant with a loose horn. Curran totally wakes up in a cave, right? And guess what? An insect monster is crawling all over her face. Yuck! She grabs her necklace and realizes that crazy thing that happened before? Yeah, that wasn't a dream. Later, she's chilling in the market, and in her head, she's like, Dragonians are super proud, and their whole deal is serving the human who's gonna be the hero and save the world. She stops at a jewelry stall and picks up this swan necklace. The merchant, who totally brushed Curran off after dropping some ridiculous price, calls her back. Why? Because she apparently cracked the necklace she touched. Curran, totally scared, denies everything. The merchant, being kinda scummy, says he'll let her go if she just pays half the necklace's worth. But then, bam, Kalios, this super hot knight and Curran's friend, swoops in. He pays the merchant the agreed price. But then he tells Curran to scratch the necklace. When she does and it leaves absolutely no dent, Kalios totally calls out the merchant. He's like, dude, you're trying to rip off this beast, human with a broken necklace. Then, he straight up pulls out the uncracked version from the merchant's pouch. Kalios snatches the good necklace, gets the half payment back from from the merchant, and then just tosses the necklace to Curran. What a legend. After that whole drama, Curran and Kallios keep on their journey. Curran, who honestly believes Kallios is her destiny, and the human hero joins his crew, and guess what? She helps them crush a bunch of missions. On their last one, Curran, being the badass she is, leads the charge against this giant, freaking cobra. But then, the ultimate betrayal. Kallios totally tricks her into making the snake reveal this poisonous gas that weakens everything, including itself. And then, he and his whole party just mock her. Ouch. Curran, totally hurting, watches the guy she thought was her hero just leave her to die, all while making fun of her beast race. Then she finds out Kallios stole her most prized possession, the Dragon King's jewel, which her teacher gave her. She bursts into tears, but manages to stop herself from smashing the necklace Kallios gave her. One day, while Curran's still wandering around town looking for Kallios and his goons, she bumps into Fifths. He's the leader of this super popular party called the Solo Eaters. Curran totally takes a liking to him and starts following him around town, not so subtly. Curran basically becomes Fifth's shadow and gets to enjoy a ton of amazing food. At some point, Fifths notices her, but he's just like, whatever. Then, one random afternoon, Curran follows Fifths into a restaurant and actually saves his sword from hitting the ground after some drunk idiot bumps into it. Fifths thanks Curran for, like, saving his dignity, recommends a bomb meal, and then just bounces. After Fifths leaves, Curran, in her head, thanks him for teaching her how to actually enjoy good food and for filling the void Kallios left with the love of food. But her food-loving excitement gets cut short because she goes totally broke. And that, my friends, is why she ended up in a bar with 3 other broke souls. Fast forward to today, and Nick is cruising through the market, trying to find a copy of Curran's broken swan necklace. He eventually links back up with the young idol at a jewelry stall, and they head to the fountain to catch up. After Nick spills the tea about his broken necklace dilemma, the young idol smartly tells him to just ask Curran where she got the original one instead of aimlessly walking around. The young idol talks some sense into Nick, and he decides to confront Curran. He finds her at a food stall, and Curran totally laughs her butt off at Nick's reaction to some treat she offers him. While they're chatting about birds and swans on a little bridge, Curran sees right through Nick's whole thing. She tells him not to worry about the pendant, and even adds that she feels better without it around. After this awkward silence between the 2 party members, Curran offers Nick another treat and just laughs her head off watching him choke. Later that night, Nick and his crew hit up the pub where they first met, and it's packed with other adventurers. Everyone's giving them props, and a bunch of flirty people are hitting on the survivor party. But then, while the 4 of them are chilling with their beers, Nick totally freaks out. Curran just swallows her pendant and makes it disappear. Then, the shy guild receptionist walks up to the happy survivors and invites them to a meeting. And guess what? Nick and his party totally freak out when they're given a mission to search the labyrinth of bonds and deliver the sword of bonds to the guild manager. Talk about a plot twist. Nick and his crew, a bunch of greedy guts, totally get sucked into this mission once they hear about the insane rewards. Like, even if they fail, or don't even get the Sword of Bonds, Nick, being the smart one, demands a map showing where all the scary monsters are lurking, and he even gets the manager to mark off all the places other adventurers already checked out. He makes sure to get all the super important deets, and totally forces the guild manager to write up a legit contract with them. After they totally kick butt and take down the monster at the entrance, Nick and his peeps are just cracking up, realizing how much they've actually started to trust each other, and Nick's laughing with them, but then he has this quick flashback to Curran's broken necklace. When Zem brings up that motion activation thing in the hallway, Tiana's like, hold up, all these monsters we've seen so far are totally fake, and while this unsuspecting party of 4 just keeps walking deeper into the hallway, all chill and everything, a hidden camera totally zooms in on them. Nick spots this one green lamp that's just, like, different from all the red ones they've seen, and he goes to check it out. The second he gets close enough to that green light, bam, a secret electronic door pops open, and the hidden camera zooms in on them again. Spooky, right? Nick leads his crew into this new exposed room, and Tiana's doing her thing, scanning for any hidden monsters. She figures there's a chance someone's messing with her detection magic, and Nick's just like, don't even sweat it, we'll deal with whoever that is eventually. Suddenly, the room lights up, and this voice starts talking to the totally surprised adventurers. The voice is all like, welcome, survivors, and then goes on this whole speech about how worthy they are, but the adventurers are totally tuning out the voice and just staring at this shining sword handle in a protected spot. Nick and the others are wondering if this broken handle is actually the Sword of Bonds and are totally speculating about how powerful it could be, while this loud voice in the background is just complaining about being ignored. The voice then announces that he is the legendary Sword of Bonds, and the team of 4 just starts complaining about the broken sword handle. Zem tries to calm his teammates down, but he totally loses it when the talking sword starts flipping out on him. A few seconds later, the talking sword is still going on about how he's this super proud blade who only helps people who value justice and friendship. The poor sword completely freaks out when it realizes its captor is planning to sell it just for some daily bread. The sword accuses the guild of tricking him into being locked up in the labyrinth bond and lying that he'd be discovered by some worthy adventurers someday. After waiting a whole year for this worthy party, he finally realized the guild totally lied to him just to keep anyone from owning him. The Sword of Bonds promised promises them some insane power if they decide to travel with him instead of selling him. But Tiana's like, we're not gonna care about power if we're totally rich. Just saying. This sneaky little sword handle apologizes to the party of 4 before dropping the bomb that his guardian system has been activated, and they can't leave the building until they defeat the Amalga Golem. A mini explosion goes off in the corner of the room, and this slimy-looking golem just oozes out of the dust. The golem pounds its fist on the floor, and the party members scramble backward to avoid getting flattened. Tiana blasts a couple of icicles at the golem, and Curran just charges forward, ready to land the finishing blow. Nick immediately knows something's wrong and tries to warn Curran, but the golem just redirects the icicles right back at Curran, and she does a pretty sloppy job of protecting herself. While Zem heals Curran, Nick charges the golem, trying to weaken it from underneath. As he's dodging the golem's attacks, Nick yells at his teammates to retreat. The talking blade handle tells Nick that there's no way to cut through the golem's skin unless he uses him as his sword handle. The sword promises to do whatever Nick wants with him after they defeat the golem. While the rest of the party is trying to escape this locked room, the sword tells Nick to picture Curran in his head and shout Union to activate its powers. Nick totally loses his cool when absolutely nothing happens after he proudly screams Union at the top of his lungs. He just goes ahead and cuts off a piece of the golem. The cut off part totally distracts Nick when it starts crawling up his feet, giving the huge golem an opening to smack Nick clear across the room. After Nick falls into a hole, the golem reattaches itself and turns to face the remaining 3 adventurers. Tiana freezes the golem and tells Curran to go get Nick. Right after Curran leaves, the golem breaks free from the ice armor and walks toward the 2 remaining adventurers. Zem recharges Tiana's strength, and Tiana tries to freeze the monster again. Curran starts clearing a path to find Nick's voice, but Nick tries to convince her to gather the others and leave him behind. Curran insists she's not leaving without him, and Nick eventually gives in to what she wants. He sadly apologizes for breaking her pendant, but Curran explains that her old party leader gave it to her, and she wasn't brave enough to get rid of it after his tragic betrayal. She reassures him that the broken pendant is one of the best things that could have happened to her. Curran pulls out the last piece of rubble between her and Nick before reaching out her hand. Nick takes her hand, and the sword handle starts to glow, while the sword handle is telling Nick to say Union again. Tiana and Zem are just accepting defeat against the golem. Just as the golem is smirking before its final attack against the 2 powerless adventurers, it explodes, and this armored-up figure, combining Nick and Curran's features, pops out of the light. The golem puts its splattered body parts back together, and then gets hit with another crushing blow from the Sword of Bonds. The golem breaks and reveals its core, which then breaks a few seconds later, after they've split back into their own bodies. Nick and his crew report to the guild manager with the sword. While the party of 4 is suspiciously praising the Sword of Bond's abilities, some crummy little human starts trashing their claims from behind. The guild manager spots the little human and asks if they're a new member of the survivor party. The human confirms it, then introduces themselves as Kizuna, which also means bonds. The manager decides to just let it go and pay the party members their well-deserved rewards. On their way back, while Kizuna is totally making fun of the guild manager for falling for a fake weapon, Curran just can't wrap her head around how a sword can turn into a human. After splitting their huge reward, the group of survivors each takes a chunk of money to totally show off their secret hobbies. Tiana decides to invite Kizuna to the race ring, but only if he agrees to ignore her spending habits. On the way to the racing ring, Tiana and Kizuna start to form this super playful bond. The squad of 4 is totally vibing with their new teammate, Kizuna. One afternoon, Tiana's chillin', messing with this cool trinket one of her crew gave her, when Kizuna starts showing off his new armor, like demanding compliments, styling all over the place. Nick, being the voice of reason, shuts down Kizuna's antics and drops the bombshell. Their party is practically broke. Yikes, that reality check, being so close to living on the streets, totally fires up the group of 5. They're all hyped to take on missions and rake in some serious cash. Flashback time. Tiana remembers when her professor gave her this igniter as a goodbye gift, and this weird professor, he's cracking some bizarre joke about humanity needing to be wiped out and how things are gonna get way worse for them. Tiana calls him out, saying his jokes are super inappropriate, and the dude just starts cracking up, like full-on hysterical. Tiana politely bails from this crazy guy, and he turns around, stops laughing for a sec, and gives her one last piece of advice. But right after that, he's back to laughing hysterically, and Tiana just respectfully walks out. Meanwhile, Nick wakes up from a nightmare about his ex and, along with the others, wonders if they're the only ones having these super strange dreams about their past. Next up, Kizuna totally messes up the team's plan by just straight up running at the enemy and attacking. After this giant ogre blocks Kizuna's first move, the ogre blasts a huge magic ball right at him. But Kizuna, being Kizuna, just bats the magic ball aside, busts out some shadow replication, and slays the ogre in one epic move. Once the team gathers, Kizuna's totally bragging about being able to make 5 copies of himself by tapping into everyone else's stamina and strength. Nick kinda mishears Kizuna's explanation, but admits he thinks Kizuna's battle technique is super fascinating. Kizuna, all cocky, says his sword techniques were actually installed into him. When Curran asks what installation even means, Kizuna explains that he basically copies the fighting styles of their past wielders and then perfects them. Tiana calls Kizuna a total cheat, and Nick quickly jumps in before things get too heated. Kizuna brags again about having a super move, but Nick immediately brings him back to reality by reminding him that they're not planning on using that union technique anytime soon. Kizuna calls Nick a stingy fool, and Nick explains there's no point in having a technique that'll make them all pass out after using it, using their newly discovered telepathy skills. Big shout out to Kizuna for that, by the way. The party members fill each other in on their plans for the rest of the day. Kizuna decides to go with Nick and Curran to grab some dinner. As the three walk past this super familiar looking restaurant, Nick realizes it's the same place Curran picked that he used to go to with his crazy ex-girlfriend. While they're all chowing down on their food, Nick hears his ex's voice from a distance. He turns around and sees her trying to scam another poor young guy, just like she did to him. Nick swoops in and points out a flaw in her sob story. The young man looks totally torn between Nick and Claudine. When Nick accuses Claudine of being the only person he knows with 2 different birthdays, the young man asks Claudine who Nick even is. When Claudine tries to ditch the scene with the young man, Nick threatens her, leaving her to storm out of the restaurant all angry and alone. Then, out of nowhere, Claudia walks in with this huge dude and dumps a whole bunch of slop right on Nick's head while Nick's having a meeting with his party members. Nick instantly recognizes who did it, and the big guy tries to intimidate Nick for embarrassing Claudine at the restaurant. The big guy challenges Nick to a face-off and leads him to a private spot. But in that private space, the big guy totally shocks Nick by apologizing and thanking him for stopping Claudine's BS. The big guy then asks Nick to keep Claudine for himself before implying that Nick must be ripping off his party members blind, just like all the other party leaders. Nick just chuckles hysterically and then lands a gut punch on the big guy for even suggesting something like that about him. The big guy tries to fight back, but Nick pins him to the ground. While Nick's thinking about the consequences of fraud, another party member from the big guy's group tosses him away. Curran, like a ninja, appears out of nowhere and knocks the big guy's savior off his feet. Then the guild manager walks into the scene and introduces herself as Vilma. She recognizes the big guy as Leon and tells Curran to let go of her victim's foot. Vilma says if there's gonna be a fight, it needs to be handled the right way. When Nick asks what the right way is, Leon points his fingers and challenges Nick to a mathematics bare-knuckle battle. Vilma's in this totally enclosed room, laying down the law for the mathematics bare-knuckle battle to these 2 teams. Kizuna breaks down the rules, basically saying if you can't solve the math problems, your chosen fighter just keeps fighting forever. Vilma drops that there are 6 rounds, then it's random draw time to pick reps, and of course Curran totally freaks out when she gets picked to go head-to-head in this math war against Claudine. Zem tries to quiz Curran on some math, but it's rough. He totally feels bad for her, but he's all like, hey, we can totally work through this, fam. We'll tackle your math weaknesses together. So, for the rest of the week, the survivor party is just grinding, trying to get Curran's grades up. But then Zem bails on a meeting, and Curran realizes he's been spending a ton of time in brothels. Sketchy, right? Turns out, Zem's in the brothel, gathering all the tea he can on Leon and his crew from the ladies working there. Then he reports back to Nick and everyone with all the juicy deets. The next morning, Claudine wakes up from a nightmare and is immediately out for Nick's blood. Drama. Then the arithmetic battles officially kick off. Curran is super stoked because she gets this math problem that's, like, actually easy for her. Claudine totally mocks her, saying a 3-year-old could solve it with their eyes closed, but Curran just brushes her off. She's focused, pushing herself to nail all the questions so she can join Nick in his fight against Leon in the makeshift ring. Nick's internally noting that Leon's dodging all his moves. Curran then shouts that she's done, and the judges tell the guys in the ring to chill while they check the math scores. After a hot minute, the judges reveal the scores. Curran got an 86, but Claudine totally crushed it with a 98 in the first round. While Claudine's still rubbing it in, Curran's apologizing to Nick for messing up. Leon gets to land a free hit on Nick as a reward for winning the first round, and he wastes no time, totally slugging Nick right between the ribs. The announcer calls the start of the second round, and Nick's just taking punch after punch while Claudine's happily scribbling away. The results for round 2 are revealed, and Claudine beats Curran by a solid 11 points. Curran guiltily looks away when Leon punches Nick in the face again for winning. Nick snaps Curran's attention back, telling her to wipe that guilty look off her face and focus up on the math problems. Curran's blaming herself for being dumb, but Nick immediately shuts her down, reminding her how much she's grown in the last few weeks. Nick's words totally hit different for Curran, and she decides decides to just go for it and answer the rest of the questions without hesitating. Vilma passes out the question sheets for the next round, and Claudine gets super mad that Curran's just ignoring all her pathetic attempts to intimidate her. While Nick and Leon are still duking it out, Tiana's scoping out the crowd for anyone suspicious, and she realizes there's no one with magic lurking around and starts wondering if they were wrong about Leon's party always cheating. In the crowd, Zem points out that the math is about to get way harder than Curran can handle and predicts she's gonna bomb the next rounds. Tiana decides to jump in, suggesting they just do all the remaining rounds at once to make things more exciting. When the crowd goes wild for Tiana's idea, Vilma agrees, as long as Nick and his opponent are down to take all the penalty hits at once. Claudine looks around and glances at Curran as the crowd starts cheering for her speed. Claudine figures Curran's just trying to mess with her by pretending to be super fast and low-key intimidating her. Using some kind of mind link, Claudine hits up the third member of her team for help, while this super nerdy guy in glasses is just furiously mashing his calculator. Tiana totally spots his location and bails with Zem and Kizuna. Nick just chuckles, pointing out that Leon's last team member seems to be missing. Leon nervously makes up some lame excuse and starts wondering if Nick's team figured out their trick, especially since Tiana's nowhere to be found. Leon tries to stop Claudine from contacting their third member, but Claudine, being totally greedy, just tells him to shut up. Kizuna and the others catch up with Mr. Glasses, and Claudine totally loses it when the answers stop coming through. Tiana and the others walk back in with Mr. Glasses and a mountain of evidence proving they've been cheating this whole time. Vilma orders a bunch of guards to arrest Leon and his goons. As the guards are dragging away the chained cheaters, Claudine cries out that she wasn't a bad person to begin with, and Curran jumps in, saying no one's born bad and it's your past choices that make you who you are now. Tiana adds that if Claudine's really learned her lesson, she should try to make up for her past mistakes. After that super stressful challenge, the team of 5 goes to a restaurant to celebrate their little victory. Leon's totally chained up in some gross dungeon, right? And he flashes back to way back when he was just a little dude. He used to totally look up to his big bro, who was like an amazing adventurer. His brother just raked in all the treasure, fame, and cash you could ever want. But even with all that, his brother ended up biting the dust in a super sad way, totally losing his mind and dignity. Leon snaps back to reality, and he's like, yep, that's why I can't trust anyone. Then, this guard with a seriously evil glint in his eye stomps over to Leon. He shoves his sword right at Leon's chest and demands to know where Leon stashed all his stolen loot. Leon's thinking he's gotta be talking about that super dangerous treasure we found the night my brother pulled off his biggest score, the one too gnarly to sell and too risky to use. With a fierce look, Leon summons the Sword of Destruction, and the guard nearly pees his pants as the huge weapon drops from the ceiling. Next up, we cut to Tiana, who's clearly leveled up from racetracks to a fancy gambling table. She's throwing down her bet when suddenly, Nick's ugly mug pops up, scanning the whole room. Apparently, the squad of 5 decided to split up and chill after hitting a bit of a gold mine. Tiana had dragged Kizuna to the casino, and Nick just tagged along to keep Kizuna from running her mouth too much. While this giant beast human thing is stomping towards the casino, looking for Nick and some sweet revenge, Tiana just calmly lights up her pipe and checks out her opponents. After totally cleaning them out, she starts messing with them, baiting one of them into storming off the table in a huff. One of the onlookers at the casino asks Tiana if she was trying to keep the guy from blowing all his cash, but Tiana gets all poetic. She's like, it's just as easy to ditch people as it is to get ditched yourself. The onlooker stares at Tiana, totally mesmerized, as she keeps talking about gamblers and their wild lives. After a little more chatter, the onlooker thanks Tiana, but then bam, a crashing sound totally wrecks the chill vibe. Everyone starts screaming, "Monster!" and running for their lives while the guards try to fight it off. Turns out, the monster is actually Leon in his beast form, and he's just tearing through the place looking for Nick. He's just tossing guards aside like they're nothing. Leon remembers being stuck in that dungeon after he summoned the Sword of Destruction, and just went absolutely wild, destroying everything. Tiana's trying to figure out how to protect everyone, but her weapon is nowhere to be found. Leon walks up to her, sniffs the air, and totally recognizes her scent. He demands to know where Nick is, and Tiana totally freaks out when she realizes this ugly monster is Leon, the suck-up they totally tricked during the mathematics bare-knuckle battle. Tiana tries to play it cool, acting like Leon isn't that smart, but Leon tells her he has an insane sense of smell. He threatens her, saying she'll just be a stain on the carpet if she tries to mess with him. Meanwhile, in another part of the room, Nick sees the chaotic crowd and wonders what the heck is going on. So, Tiana's having this intense internal debate. Risk her life to save Nick, or just betray him and save herself? After a super short moment, Tiana just chuckles and asks Leon why he would ever think taking her hostage would even bother Nick. Leon points out that if he threatens one of Nick's crew, Nick will totally react. Tiana just laughs in Leon's face, explaining that they're just a bunch of adventurers who don't trust anyone, not even each other. They're not a crew. Leon is totally shocked as Tiana laughs hysterically, and then she pulls out her pipe and igniter. After explaining where her pipe came from and all its fancy features, Tiana suddenly stabs Leon's paws with her glowing igniter, and Leon screams in pain. Black smoke pours out of him, and he collapses to the ground, giving Tiana and the lady behind her a chance to escape, but of course, Leon blocks them off. Tiana yells at some random guy who's hiding to grab the onlooker, the one she kinda bonded with, and get out of there. Tiana gets back on her feet and explains that her party members are basically a bunch of broken individuals who only came together to keep each other from completely falling apart. Leon is actually surprised that Tiana is spitting such real talk, but then he quickly realizes that the hope and resignation he smelled earlier were actually from her. Tiana declares that Nick would never risk his life to save her, and Leon pulls out his sword of destruction, ready to finish Tiana for good. But then, Leon is totally shocked when Nick appears out of nowhere and blocks his sword with the sword of bonds. Tiana warns Nick about Leon, and Nick just playfully talks smack to Leon. The two swords start having their own little rivalry conversation, and the sword of destruction vows to totally dominate the sword of bonds. When the sword of destruction flares up, letting Leon absorb its power, Nick is forced to team up with Tiana. Team Nick totally drops the temperature in the room and tries to block Leon with an ice fence, but Leon just walks right through it. As Leon walks away, he realizes he never even wanted this fight, and there's nothing for him to gain. He looks around and regrets how he's affecting everyone and everything, but then the sword of destruction starts rambling about how important power is and how cool it is to make people fear you. Leon admits to himself that he doesn't want to be the kind of guy who turns people's happiness into fear and sadness, and then he just roars into the air. Team Nick traps Leon in an ice cage. While Team Nick is totally stabbing Leon with icicles everywhere, Leon argues with the sword of destruction, admitting that all he ever wanted was to be an adventurer like his brother. The sword reminds him that his brother died a miserable death, and Leon agrees that even though his brother was killed by his own comrades, the sword is wrong about him. Leon insists he's not the bad guy. He breaks free from the ice cage and drops the sword of destruction on the floor. Team Nick freezes the sword and slaps a bunch of anti-magic cards on Leon to keep him held down until the cops show up. Leon actually thanks Nick for beating him and lets himself get arrested. A little while later, Nick visits Leon in his cell to tell him that nobody got hurt at the casino and that he locked away the sword of destruction. As Nick walks away, Leon just laughs at him, thinking about how Nick has no idea how much his own party members actually trust each other. Nick's just jogging through a super chill park, right? And then, out of nowhere, this young idol, Belle, sneaks up behind him. She starts whispering stuff, trying to make him think it's his own thoughts telling him to buy all these super expensive idol souvenirs. After they've gone a few blocks, she finally convinces him to chill for a bit. That's when Nick totally freaks out, realizing she's been right behind him the whole time. They sit down on a bench, and Belle gets real for a sec. She says she felt kinda weird after giving him his first idol concert ticket. She explains that even though idols are supposed to make their fans feel loved, some people in the industry take things way too far and totally trash their lives obsessing over idols. Belle then smiles, saying she's glad her influence helped him get his act together instead of turning him into an obsessed mess. Nick gets serious then, telling her that if she hadn't introduced him to the idol scene and helped him get back on his feet, he probably would have gone down a bad path, maybe even become a criminal. While he's looking at Belle, he realizes he was right all along. Something's been bugging her for ages, and that's when Belle Haggins decides to spill the tea. So, a few years back, Belle was just a part-time musician, helping out at her boyfriend's bar and singing whenever she could. Even though literally no one was listening, Belle kept singing her heart out. That's when Joseph Coleman, some big-shot producer, spots her and offers her a chance to become an idol. Her boyfriend, totally not caring what Belle thought, was all about selling her off to the idol industry. But then, Belle goes to her first live idol concert, and boom, her heart gets taken over by this crazy mix of greed, the feeling of being loved by a huge crowd, and having a super strong fandom. She and two other girls she met at that concert crowd get welcomed into the idol world as rivals. As time goes on, Belle's relationship with her boyfriend totally sours because he starts extorting money from her. Belle finally sees that the guy she once shared dreams with has turned into this hungry monster, hooked on gambling and blowing money like crazy. He lost all his drive for work and just relied on Belle's income, but Belle, who was kinda in denial, just let his excesses slide. And one fated evening, Belle decides to go grab a drink. She totally overhears Claudine dumping Nick, and being the good soul she is, she follows the heartbroken guy into the rain to cheer him up. A little while later, Belle's boyfriend somehow convinces her to go to a casino with him. At the casino, she runs into Tiana, who had totally wiped out all of her boyfriend's money just to get a reaction out of him. And then, when Leon shows up in his monster form, Belle watches in pure amazement as Team Nick takes him down. After that whole casino drama, Joseph Coleman pays off Belle's boyfriend's debt and straight up forbids him from ever seeing Belle again. Belle finally grows a backbone and officially breaks up with her boyfriend. He acts all cool about it, like her wishes don't even faze him. He even calls Belle unsuccessful gambling material and drops some totally meaningless advice on her. After the breakup, Belle totally lost touch with him until one random afternoon when she saw him sweeping the street, looking like a total loser. The very next week, Belle throws a comeback concert for her fans. She dedicates her first song to the hero she was lucky enough to meet at the casino, Tiana. The crowd goes absolutely wild when Belle starts singing, and Nick just watches, completely astonished and finally putting things together. After the concert, Belle tries to trick Nick at the party park again, but this time, Nick totally sees right through her. He asks her why she seemed so bothered the last time she visited him. Belle admits she had her worries, just like everyone else, but she's moved past it. She adds that solving one problem just leads to even bigger, more complex ones. Nick agrees with her theory, pointing out that once you get a taste of worries, they never really go away. Belle then gets the attention of a stray dog in front of them and picks it up. She confidently says she's going to keep pushing forward no matter what, and Nick agrees with her again. He continues that whenever someone resolves something that's bothering them, it means they've moved a step forward in life. After Belle pats the stray dog descended on its way, Nick looks up at the sky and tells Belle that they both just have to keep moving forward. Belle looks up at the sky too and agrees with Nick, her friend who she had once thought was lost. The squad's just chilling at their place when Kazuna, being Kazuna, starts bugging everyone with his comic book dream character. Nick's all like, chill out, but Kazuna gets totally annoyed. He shoves his magazine in Nick's face and throws a fit. Then, some random geek overhears Kazuna's dramatic cries for justice and gets super interested, peeking through the glass like a total weirdo. This geek introduces herself as Olivia Taylor, an adventurer and writer for the exact magazine. Kazuna was just waving around. When the group can't believe someone as geeky as Olivia is an actual adventurer, she decides to show off some of her moves. While doing all these stances, she totally slips and ends up leaning on Curran. After her little display, Olivia tells the group that whenever something wild is happening in the city, she's always there to check it out. Later that night, Zem's just drunkenly strolling down the street when he freaks out after seeing some mysterious creature grab a little girl. In the next scene, at the idol hall entrance, Kazuna senses Zem's in trouble and drags Nick to his location. When Nick gets there, he's totally bewildered to see that the villain from Kazuna's magazine, aka the Stepping Man, has attacked Zem. Kazuna steps up and handles the invisible Stepping Man. When the bad guy realizes Kazuna can actually see him, he bolts. Zem heads back to the brothel with Nick and Kazuna to get himself and the little girl patched up. At the brothel, Nick tries to question the girl about her attacker, but one of the ladies working there cuts him off. Nick apologizes, and then the little girl suddenly starts insisting that her attacker is the Stepping Man. When Nick asks her to explain, the young girl tells him her mom always went out late at night to fight the Stepping Man, but she lost and is now stuck in the hospital. She goes on to say that the Stepping Man has been behind all the recent disappearances of kids, but when her mom tried to expose him, no one believed her. Zem chimes in, adding that even if people don't believe the Stepping Man exists, he's seen it attack an innocent child and jump seamlessly from roof to roof. After learning the little girl's name is Reina, Zem reassures her that he believes the Stepping Man is real and praises her mom's bravery. Reina suddenly asks Zem if she can be his student, but Zem refuses to take her in because she's too young. Kazuna scoffs, realizing the Stepping Man he used to glorify in his books is just a cheapskate, sorry excuse for a villain who only kidnaps kids. Kazuna stands up and declares he's going to destroy this wannabe Stepping Man. The next day, Nick decides to turn their hunt for the Stepping Man into a legit mission. He visits a bounty hunter guild and demands to know if they have any rewarding jobs for finding the Stepping Man. The guild receptionist denies them access to the Stepping Man's case, totally rags on Nick for getting kicked out of his old party, and gives them some other random bounty job. When the crowd of bounty hunters overhears that Nick and his friends are the famous party of survivors, one of them throws a huge fit. After some back and forth between this massive bounty hunter and Tiana, Tiana places a massive bet on her party's success, and most of the guild bets against the party of survivors succeeding in their assigned bounty mission. The survivor party tracks their target to Garbage Town, which is basically where all the low-life criminals hang out and is one of the most dangerous parts of the city, especially feared by guards. Nick walks up to this deranged-looking gatekeeper to get some info, but after the gatekeeper spouts a bunch of unhelpful nonsense, he warns them to steer clear of someone named Nalgava. When Nick asks who Nalgava is, the gatekeeper tells him Nalgava is a big shot in their hood. As Nick and his party members walk through the super smelly criminal den looking for Hale, their culprit, a group of ruffians confronts them, trying to mug them. In a flash, Nick and the others disarm the ruffians and question them about Hale. The gang leader directs Nick and the others to an inn on the east side. When the rogue leader tries to shake Nick down for his information, Tiana reminds him that he's about to rob them. Zem stalks behind the group and suddenly starts grilling the rogue leader. After Zem puts the squeeze on the poor guy, he confesses that his life didn't turn out how he wanted, and he never wanted to be a low-life criminal. After a moment of silence and Curran's intervention, Zem gives the guy a mild calming medicine as payment for his info. Just before the group leaves, the rogue man warns them that Hale is a super fast runner who can easily disappear in the blink of an eye. At the back of the inn, Kazuna senses Hale's presence, and Nick plans an ambush. Nick and the others easily catch Hale, tie him up, and escort him out of his pleasure room. In front of the room, they run into Nalgava, Hale's supposed priest/doctor, who questions why they're messing with his patient. After Nick explains that Hale is a total criminal who has committed every crime imaginable except murder, Nalgava gives gives in, but adds that Hale has an illness and he'd like to cure him before Nick and the others take him away. Zem steps in and retorts that Nalgava's treatment might be pointless if Hale is sentenced to death. Zem also mentions the possibility of Hale clearing his name before asking Nalgava how he became an ex-priest living in Garbage Town despite his obvious talent. Nalgava straight up asks Zem if he wants to go back to being a priest, and everyone in the room is shocked to hear that he would. Kizuna, being his usual loudmouth self, asks Nalgava if he knows anything about the stepping man. When Nalgava admits he doesn't, Hale starts laughing hysterically before pointing out that Garbage Town is full of gross kidnappers. When Nalgava tells Hale to chill out, Hale informs them that he often sees a weird reporter going around giving kids candy to talk to them. In no time, Nick and his party members head to the Bounty Hunter Guild to turn in Hale. Tiana walks up to the big guy who led the bet against her and collects her payment. She hands the money to the receptionist and asks to buy as many bottles of beer as possible for all the bounty hunters in the guild. The next morning, Nick and the others visit the guild to collect their reward and some info about the stepping man. After reading a bunch of useless notes about the stepping man from random people, Nick asks the receptionist about the kidnapper people referred to as the stepping man, but the receptionist directs them to a weird reporter who gives candy to random kids. Nick laughs when he realizes that this weird reporter is the same weird lady who acted like an idiot with them a few days ago. When Kizuna mentions that the stepping man he fought used chains for weapons, Curran points out that when the geeky lady bumped into her, she felt heavier than she should have, almost as if she had chains wrapped around her body. Nick immediately tells Curran and Tiana to block the building's exits while he slowly approaches the reporter. Nick gets in front of the reporter's table and gets straight to the point. He asks her what she does to the children after giving them candy, but the reporter plays dumb, and Nick asks her where she was 2 nights ago. After the strange girl gives a bunch of messed up explanations, Nick asks her if she is the stepping man and where she keeps the children she kidnaps. The weird reporter foolishly denies Nick's questions and surprises everyone by kicking the table in front of her in half and leaping out of the room through the roof. Zem, our boy, jolts awake from some gnarly prison nightmare. He drags himself out of bed muttering to himself, "You know the drill, just trying to get it together." So, Olivia dips out through the roof, right? And then Kizuna, Zem, and Nick are chilling at the brothel, trying to figure out if Olivia's moves are totally in sync with that stepping man they saw a couple nights back. Then, bam, Reina's mom shows up. And Nick, he totally recognizes her as Ada the sommelier, like the legendary swashbuckler from the A-rank party grand chef. Ada starts reminiscing about her adventures with Fifths and the crew, and Curran is just swooning. Seriously, Ada tries to tell her daughter, Reina, to back off the whole stepping man case, but Reina's not having it. She even asks Zem for his opinion, calling him Master. Zem, being Zem, totally shuts her down, telling this whole story about how some girl her age framed him and messed up his life. Reina then asks if that's why he told her to come back in 15 years to be his student. But before Zem can even answer, Ada jumps in and is like, "Nope, you are not marrying my daughter." Reina, cool as a cucumber, clears things up with her mom, and everyone just cracks up at Zem, who just got friend-zoned by a little kid. Ouch! A little while later, Ada thanks the squad for helping her daughter, but then she totally warns them to steer clear of the stepping man case. Nick's not having that though. He reminds her she's not the boss of him, and says he's taking this case personally because the stepping man's whole deal is just super annoying. Ada then spills the tea. She made up the stepping man name to get guilds and adventurers to pay attention. She says she's out of the chase now, all for her daughter's safety. So Nick, being the smart one, asks her how to take down this super powerful dude. Ada takes them to a bar and buys them some crazy expensive mushroom juice. Afterwards, she explains what they need to beat the stepping man and gives them this special igniter to test their potential. First day of training, total fail. But then, Kizuna ambushes the stepping man when he snatches a young girl off the street at night. Kizuna leads the stepping man right to Nick and Zem for an interrogation. But as soon as Nick asks him to show his face, the stepping man just bails. The next day, Nick goes to visit Leon in his cell to ask about magic items that can hide someone's presence. Leon scratches his head for a bit, then mentions this Illusion King's Jewel. Apparently, it's a magic item that does disguise and a bunch of other stuff. He says the easiest way to shut it down is to just confidently speak the user's name. Wild, right? So, the next day, Nick totally nails his training and has this flashback to when he was a kid training. Meanwhile, Zem's got a bunch of new info about the stepping man. Nick then leads his crew back to Garbage Town. When the gatekeeper tells them he found a kid's lifeless body a few days ago, Nick feels sick to his stomach. As the group is walking through this misty path, Kizuna warns them through telepathy that they're being followed. Out of nowhere, Olivia swoops in and attacks Nick. After Nick uses some of the stepping man's moves, she straight up accuses him of being the stepping man. Nick remembers Leon telling him to call out the culprit's name confidently, so he decides to go for it. And everyone is totally shocked when Olivia responds in her usual, totally unhinged way. A bit later, Olivia reveals that she is a stepping man, but not the one kidnapping kids. She explains that stepping man is just another way to say weirdo who jumps from roof to roof at night. She then agrees to join them to catch the stepping man who's been snatching snatching kids. Being so, Olivia tags along with the crew to check out the dead child's body. She points out how weird it is that the body is perfectly clean and has no bruises. Zem turns the body over and totally freaks out when a red glowing stone just floats gently out of the body's back. He picks up the stone, and Olivia examines it. She crushes the stone, and suddenly, burns and birthmarks appear on the body's skin. Zem opens the body's eyes and reports signs of yellow demon sickness under treatment. Olivia then points out that this little girl isn't just anybody. She was clearly cherished by her loved ones. Back at the brothel, Tiana tells the group that the dead kid was the daughter of a guy who runs an armor shop, and she'd been missing for over a month. So, after figuring out that the stepping man must be going in and out of Garbage Town, the group decides to return the body to her parents and get justice for her death. Nick is totally chasing this dude, the stepping man, under a full moon, right? Nick's all like, yo, you're in such a hurry, you can't even appreciate this epic moon? But then the stepping man, with this super creepy voice, fires back, saying Nick's light body technique is still kinda weak, even though he does give props to Nick's martial arts skills. So, they're both getting ready to throw down, and Nick asks why this guy is snatching innocent kids. The stepping man just launches this massive, heavy chain at Nick, complaining about Nick's nosiness. Nick totally dodges it and says he's basically figured out everything about this dude, except why he's doing the kidnapping. Nick charges in and it's a full-on fist fight. While the stepping man is blocking Nick's punches, he drops a bombshell, saying Nick's missing one huge piece of the puzzle about him. Nick's like, "Nuh-uh, I ain't falling for that," and then he just casually mentions he was shocked to find out the person writing all those academic papers from the dump, aka the garbage collection, was actually Nalgava, and just like Leon said, the second Nalgava's name is dropped, his invisible cloak disappears, revealing his super angry face. Nalgava, still kinda ticked, congratulates Nick on being so smart. Nick then spills the tea, saying his suspicion started when the body they found had signs of yellow demon sickness. Nick keeps going, explaining that Nalgava must have been using Garbage Town and his victims to find a cure for it. Nalgava then says he has nothing left to lose, and Nick charges him, throwing a bunch of attacks that just don't land. Nalgava is blocking everything like it's nothing, telling Nick he knows his every move. Nick then jumps up, flying through the night air, and lands a killer kick on Nalgava's locked fists. They both crash right through the building's roof. Nalgava looks around the new room and realizes he's been totally tricked, walking right into a trap. Then Zem steps forward, asking Nalgava why he's spreading this deadly sickness. Nalgava reveals that his daughter lost her life to it. Zem points out that he already knew about his daughter's fate, and then he tells the whole tragic story of how his daughter got infected and passed away. Nalgava just collapses, asking why his daughter had to have such a messed up destiny. He admits he was desperately trying to find a cure for the disease that killed her. When Nalgava tries to justify his messed up actions, Zem steps in, accusing him of taking other people's kids' lives, all in the name of finding a cure for his own daughter's illness. Zem then tells him about the heartbreaking pain the parents and families went through when he had to deliver their dead kids' bodies back to them. He reminds Nalgava that the pain he felt losing his daughter is the exact same pain his victim's parents are feeling. While Zem and Nalgava are having this super intense heart-to-heart, Kizuna suddenly warns the group telepathically that they are not alone. Suddenly, a bright fire shoots through the entrance and right into Nalgava's chest, and then the door just falls down, revealing this super weird being. Zem tries to heal Nalgava, but this strange being just tosses him aside, telling him to save his magic and wait his turn. When the strange being announces he's there to kill everyone, Curran jumps up to do a combo attack with Tiana, but the being dodges their attack like it's nothing and takes them out. Zem immediately starts healing Nalgava, and Nalgava tells him that he's actually holding his team back by focusing on saving unimportant people while his comrades are getting pummeled. He adds that Zem's supposed kindness is actually just being self-centered, and his selfishness is going to get them all killed. Suddenly, Nick calls out to Zem, asking him to make a union with him, but Zem is totally conflicted and just watches as Nick gets attacked by this strange being. While Zem is just reeling in shock and guilt, Kizuna tells him that Olivia is about to buy them some time while he figures out his next move. Olivia jumps into the house and delivers a direct kick to the being. She recognizes the being as the infamous White Mask and blocks his sword attack with her bare hands. Olivia totally surprises White Mask with her speed and kicks him from behind. After Olivia lands a few successful hits on White Mask, Zem finally forms a union with Nick. When Olivia tries to escape the scene, White Mask drags her back and traps her in this glowing red dome with super hot temperatures and crazy air pressure that could totally end her. When Team Nick tries to jump in, the Sword of Bonds warns him not to rush in blindly. White Mask then leaps into the air to attack Team Nick, and Team Nick realizes that his sword is way heavier than it looks. Team Nick decides to use their speed to their advantage. While Team Nick is zipping around around from wall to wall at an almost impossible speed. Olivia realizes the dome is getting weaker before she totally destroys it. Olivia tries to distract White Mask, but White Mask figures out Team Nick's pattern and attacks him. When White Mask announces his victory, the Sword of Bonds swings in from nowhere and lands right in the middle of White Mask. White Mask pulls out the sword, accepts defeat, and then takes off with a huge explosion. After making sure everyone is safe, Zem tries to heal Nalgava, but Nalgava reveals he's infected himself with the yellow demon sickness and asks them to just leave him to die in the collapsing building. And the next morning, Zem pays his respects to the collapsed building. When Kizuna mentions they're one case down, Olivia tells them not to let their guard down, reminding them that White Mask is still out there somewhere. The group convinces Olivia to reveal her true identity, and Olivia confesses that she is the Sword of War. After that epic showdown with White Mask, Nick and the gang have just been chilling at home, kinda moping and lost in their own heads. Nick, though, totally flashes back to when he was just a little dude. His dad was driving him and his mom to see Uncle Argus in Labyrinth City, right? But then, bam, bandits attacked their caravan. His mom hid him away, then grabbed a knife and went out to fight alongside his dad. Super intense. Of course, those nasty bandits ended up killing his parents. But just in time, Argus swoops in and saves Nick's life. A few days later, Argus was like, "Hey kid, wanna be an adventurer?" And that's how Nick's journey began. In the memory, Argus puts Nick through the ringer, teaching him the tough life of an adventurer. And get this, on his very first mission with Argus and his crew, some monster just shatters Nick's sword. Totally brutal. Fast forward to today, and Nick's looking at that very same broken sword. He's totally remembering how Argus kicked him out of the party. He closes his eyes, and you can just feel the regret, like he wishes he could go back and do things differently. Then, suddenly, Nick wakes up. Why? Because he hears someone singing in the rain, and he freaks out when he realizes it's Belle, his super famous idol. He rushes out, protecting her with the umbrella she actually gave him the first time they met. It's kinda cute, but they both realize they don't even know each other's real names, so they decide to keep things anonymous, and Belle tells Nick to hang on to the umbrella until the rain stops. Meanwhile, in a quiet room, Zem just finished checking out a patient's mouth. The patient, all chill, asks if Zem was the one who offed Nalagava. When Zem's like, "Yep," the patient totally cheers. He blurts out that Zem must have killed him to take his spot. Then, this dude just skips out of the room, yelling that he won his bet. Crazy, right? Another older patient walks in to see Dr. Zem. After helping the old guy, Zem confesses that he's decided to step into Nalagava's shoes in Garbage Town. It's his way of mourning and feeling a bit better about himself. Over with Tiana, she wakes up, takes a puff from her pipe, and just stares at the night sky. The next day, she's at the racetracks, totally lost in her own head, realizing that a quiet life is just boring. Then, the day after that, Curran shows up at their usual meeting spot. She's got this weird look on her face and asks the group how they're doing. After a bunch of super dry answers, Kizuna notices Zem's super dirty feet and asks if he's still cosplaying Nalagava. Zem's like, "Dude, we agreed to stay out of each other's private lives." Kizuna gets it though. Everyone in the party is battling their own inner demons and keeping their distance from each other. That night, Kizuna goes to see Zem in Garbage Town. He tells him, straight up, that if Zem's gonna be a doctor in such a dangerous neighborhood, he's gonna need the Sword of Bonds to back him up. Kizuna totally offers to be his bodyguard, and Zem, super grateful, thanks him for being so kind. And the next morning, when Curran meets up with her friends at their usual spot, Kizuna is totally fanboying over his new comic collection in his favorite magazine. Curran, all hesitant, asks about everyone's well-being, but quickly changes the subject to food. After getting some forced responses, she just dips out. While she's wandering the streets looking for food, Curran admits she just can't shake the memories of Nalagava and the White Mask. She reminds herself that she'll never forgive Cleos for stealing her most precious treasure. Then, she stumbles upon a merchant trying to pull the classic cracked necklace scam on a young beast human. Curran totally shuts down the merchant's plans and watches the little beast girl walk away, super relieved. Nick and the others find Curran and invite her to come along to the Summer Sleep Festival. On their way to the festival, Olivia, like a total mad bull, charges at them to spill some baseless rumors she heard and wrote about for her magazine. When Olivia starts dropping names of potential enemies, Curran suddenly asks about the Dragon King's jewel and its involvement. She admits she doesn't think she should be obsessing over Kalios, but then she's like, "What else am I supposed to do?" Curran goes on, saying she's been having a great time with the group, but she feels like there's something she's totally avoiding. Curran is genuinely surprised when Tiana and the others say they're totally down to follow her, fight her battles with her, and even turn those fights into jobs, just like they did with the Stepping Man. Olivia spits out some super motivating pep talk, and the rest of the group decides to just roll with it. The team of 6 then hears fireworks popping off behind them, and turns around to take in the absolutely gorgeous lights in the sky. After a night of pure fun, and a not-so-little beast girl totally tailing Curran around all these exotic restaurants, Kizuna and Olivia are chatting about how they'll outlive their friends because of what they are. Olivia admits she gets a kick out of nurturing the heroes who will eventually defeat the super powerful Demon King and save the world.